I made SpongeBob's famous gross-ups even grosser with photoreal 3D modeling, texturing, and lighting, and they looked...
Are you ready, kids?
Aye, aye, Captain!
Yo, kids, you guys remember SpongeBob SquarePants, right?
SpongeBob SquarePants!
It was a huge inspiration for me as a kid. The combination of absurdist humor, creative world building, and whimsical adventures, I probably have brain rot from how much I watched it. But one of the best things about SpongeBob SquarePants is what they've gone and apparently coined gross-ups. Essentially extremely close-up shots of still animation that offer far more texture and detail than the average animation frame would typically provide. I went and recreated some of my favorites in excruciating detail, and I want to show you exactly how I did it. Nickelodeon, please don't sue me. Alright, so let's get to grossing. This is how I approached the first SpongeBob close-up. He's tired, eye boogers, limp nose. This seems like a bit of a challenge to hard surface model, so I just went ahead and tried my hand at sculpting. I'm not a good sculptor by any means, but I do own a pen tablet, so I'm basically a pro already. So I blocked out SpongeBob with some primitive shapes, remeshed the whole thing, and then threw it into a multi-res modifier. And just start pushing and pulling polygons around with these tools over here. Clay, draw, blob, inflate, smooth, grab. They've got it all. And somehow, some way, I figured out how to make something look halfway close to the photo reference. I don't, this was a miracle. So now with my hand and my wrist cramping, you make a new image texture and you just start slapping around some color. Play with the overlay options, turn down the opacity and get sloppy, whatever you'd like. I actually quite enjoyed this and I'm excited to potentially keep working this way in the future. I painted his eyeballs, every crevasse I could find, and then released my wrist from Drawtonimo Bay, and I was ready to make these colors even nastier in the shader editor. And here's the main things I implemented in all these renders that really amped up the gross. Number 1, gloss. Drippings, globules, wetness, moist. Number 2, translucency. Subsurface scattering on pretty much everything. And it makes everything feel alive, juicy, and more realistic. Number 3, contrast. Lighting helps a lot with this as well, but as much cavities, dark masses, cracks, and holes you can add helps so much in creating this awful, unworldly unknown to where critters and germs could collect. Throw in some kicker lights behind the subject, and this whole thing starts to come together in a beautifully hideous way. So yeah, let's see how this feels in context.
Time for a little shut-eye
Before and after. Yeah, delicious eye crud. It's so good. Okay, on to the next one. It's one of my favorite images from SpongeBob.
I call it the nasty patty.
It looks like half sea creature, half fungi pus. Let's do it. Modeled a patty shape, model a bun shape. I created some string beans, discs, and folded planes for the toppings. And then my favorite object in Blender, the metal ball, was used to create the goop. Everything gets some goop. Big goop, little goop, just goop it up. To the burger, I added a particle system that spawned all these little alien seeds all over the place. I added hair to the top bun because, you know, I added little pore openings, then remeshed the buns so it's all in one piece. Now the modifier that makes everything 10% more gross, displace. You use a texture or clouds to make your thing all warbly, and it works wonders. Then texture it all up. Again, subsurface scattering, wormy pink, moldy green. Mix them together with a Musgrave texture, creamy white, slimy translucent yellow. Delicious. I added some alien eggs coming out of the pores of the top bun, and then the late addition chef's kiss, glossy, translucent, metal ball slime that's oozing out of each of the pores. Yeah.
I call it the nasty patty.
Why, that's the most diabolical Krabby Patty ever spawned.
Okay, this next one, I swear we were served in the middle school cafeteria.
Holy fish paste, what is that? That's the appetizer.
This one was surprisingly difficult because of how homogeneous it all is. Not much color variation or specific landmarks or objects to make, so I had to mix gloss and dry in the right way to give it more character, you'll see. Alright, I gotta be honest, this was a bit of an L technique-wise, but I started out by making a large rigid body simulation with a bunch of cubes, remeshed and subdivided to create my mountain no poo, and then sculpted and pushed the vertices around to more or less create the silhouette from the TV show. Again, using some displacement, and then we were like 90% done. But honestly, listen, if you're gonna do this, just sculpt it. I then modeled some wings, an insect leg, a slug or an organ or just something non-specific and gross, and went straight into texturing. At first, like I said, it felt too homogeneous and dry. I mixed in my moss shader, not gross enough. I then created a particle system to implant insect seeds all over the mountain, added a yellow texture to contrast with the poo brown, and then used, you guessed it, metal balls to add orangey red phlegm all over the entire thing. Now it's starting to feel better. Oh yeah, also some hair again because of the implications, a little animation, and
Mr. Krabs, you gotta take him out of the... Holy fish paste! What is that? That's the appetizer! That's the appetizer!
woo, we getting gross, baby. Me and you together, we did this. It's been a wonderful time to spend with you getting gross. And our time together is not over just yet because I made one more gross up. And somehow, some way, this one turned out to be my favorite. It is Gary's food. A lot of modeling, a lot of texturing, a lot of displace modifier. I really worked hard to get this translucent jelly shader just right. I think it's my favorite, yeah.
Gary's food! Yay!
So honestly, throughout this whole process, I learned a lot. Sculpting, texture painting, the power of glossy metal balls, and the art of gross. But another thing I realized is how incredible the original artists are that created these original abominations in the first place. Using just illustration and an artistic eye, they can imply so much and sculpt a picture that feels like it's rich with granular detail, even though it's kind of just brushstrokes. So big up you guys, animators. As long as you don't sue me, you're good in my book. And all honestly, I still prefer their creations more than mine. So which one was your favorite, or better yet, least favorite? Let me know down in the comments, or, you know, send your hate messages to me over at Instagram. Shout out to SpongeBob, shout out to Blender, shout out to Nickelodeon. Kissy kissy.